Hello everyone, what's up, and welcome back to episode 3 of A Needle in a Haystack, a behind-the-scenes count of a mucosal melanoma survivor. I'm Chris White, mucosal melanoma survivor, thriver, and advocate, inspirational speaker, and author of Killing Cancer with Tills. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer, I am not a medical expert. I am only an expert on my own experience. Therefore, please defer all your medical inquiries to your care team. On today's episode, we pick up about 10 days later after the previous episode left off. The previous episode, I had finished up at my first appointment with the mucosal melanoma specialist. He had set a plan in place for me to meet with a multidisciplinary care team that included radiologists, surgical oncologists. Already had one of those scheduled for August 6th, so we were able to get all the rest of them scheduled in and around that. And today's episode, we are going over the beginning of that trip that lasted from August 6th to August 10th of 2018. This first appointment I had was with the surgical oncologist to get the layout of the land from him, CT scan of the abdomen and pelvis, an MRI scan of the abdomen and pelvis, and also a ultrasound along with some labs, and then also a sigmoscopy. Listen to what he has to say, and I'll see you on the next one.
Chris.
Good.
Hi, good morning. I'm Chris's mom. I'm Kathy.
Nice to
I'm
meet you.
Jim, I'm his dad.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Jim's brother.
All right.
Would you like me to move so you can?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
No,
Cool.
I said enough. I could
Thank you.
take care of you guys. Did you make it down okay?
Yeah.
You came down
Yesterday?
yesterday. Okay.
Yeah.
Avoid rain or with rain?
Yeah, there's no rain.
Okay.
I think it's sprinkled for a sec.
Okay.
That was it.
Good. All right. So you had seen Dr.
Yeah.
And if I am recreating the past month's events, you had a mass in your groin
Mm-hmm.
that your local doc thought might be an infection, so did a short course of antibiotics and
Wasn't. And
Wasn't.
then had me see a surgeon. He thought it was a femoral hernia.
okay.
And then when he went to
And where was it?
it was right in here, like literally
In
like.
the crease of the
Yeah,
groin,
it's
or
in the
below it, or
crease.
above it?
Right in the crease.
Okay.
And so when he did the surgery and opened me up, it wasn't a femoral hernia. It was just the lymph node, and it died. So we pulled it out and sent
Lymph
it to
node
pathologist. It died. He said the lymph node was a dead
Oh,
lymph
okay.
node.
Okay.
And then sent it to pathology.
Okay.
And then a few days later, I went to go see the proctologist.
And those were independent or related events?
Well, that surgeon, he referred me to the proctologist because I was like, well, I got this hemorrhoid and stuff. He's like, oh, a guy that work with in the network, blah blah blah.
Okay.
So I saw him and he was like, I don't think that's.
That was on the 5th. So that was
Yeah.
a month ago.
And then he was like, when you get your results, got my results the next day.
Okay.
And then,
From the groin.
yeah,
From the
from the
excision.
groin pathology.
Okay.
So got those results on the 6th, and then the following Tuesday.
So no biopsy was done on the 5th when you saw the proctologist?
No.
He didn't cut him then.
Yeah, okay.
We waited, and then I saw the oncologist and got some more tests done, PET scan and some other results.
Yep,
Then I had that surgery on the 16th.
yeah,
I saw the doc on a Friday. He scheduled me surgery on a Monday.
okay. And then we don't have the operative report there, but we'll get it.
Yeah.
And we have the slides from that 16th procedure, but we
Yeah.
don't have the outside report, but we can also get that.
Okay.
Was the plan to diagnose that, or was it to treat it, or do you have a sense of what the plan was?
On the
into that?
anorectal surgery?
Yeah,
No, so that was that mass was just getting real uncomfortable and real annoying.
you able to feel it?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it was like outside of it. You could totally feel it.
Okay.
So one is to get rid of it, because if it was just a hemorrhoid in the beginning, I would gotta get rid of it anyways.
Okay,
So. But I definitely wanted it gone, so he did get that. It seemed like he got.
and was
all
that
of
the
it.
same person as you saw you on the 5th, or a different person?
It was a different person. So my proctologist was. No, it was the same surgeon. Same surgeon.
Okay,
Yeah.
so colorectal guy.
hmm
Okay. And that was on the 16th,
Yeah, that surgery was on the 16th.
so that's now about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that surgery, I had the brain scan.
Mm-hmm.
And did that, and then we came down here about a week and a half ago
Okay,
and saw
okay. Got it.
a dermatologist in between there too.
Okay. And you're the record keeper.
Yes,
That's right.
sir, I am a record keeper. I did give a packet of papers to.
Yeah, she's going through, we
the-
just went through that, we didn't, and these are a couple things we didn't see in there, so we
Okay,
can fill in the
so
blanks.
the written report from the
Proctologist.
proctologist should both be in there.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't see any operative reports.
Okay.
Wouldn't be an office note, it would be an
Oh,
operative
maybe,
report.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it would be a different, it would be
Yeah,
from
it
the
was
actual
the
procedure.
pathology report.
There was a pathology, yeah, we had the pathology report of the inguinal nodes, but I didn't see in particular one for the anal melanoma.
Yeah.
I have it in here.
Okay,
if you
so we
need
can,
it.
we'll,
Okay.
we'll add that to the records.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think it's
Um,
in the other packet too.
Okay, rest of you understand is pretty healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Any melanoma in the family?
No. Grandmother had lung cancer, you know, in the early 2000s. Grandfather had leukemia. But other than that, I think that's it.
Okay, and what kind of
Yeah.
work do you do?
I'm a new home construction manager.
Okay, you busy?
Just, yeah, I actually started 13 new houses in July. And I got another guy helping out my neighborhood, so I don't have
Okay.
to really sweat any of it. But
Yeah, and I saw that you had, and we have the images from the PET CT scan that you had on the,
11th.
so
That was the
this is
11th,
the 11th or the 16th? 16th.
okay.
The gross, oh, here it is. Measures 2.6 by 1.5 by 1. So it was about an inch long after it was removed from
Yeah.
there. And do you know how big the mass was?
It felt big, but it's hard to kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
It looks like here it was about a centimeter. These based on thickness, which is one measure. There's not much of a description of,
He was trying to tell me it was like size of a quarter at most or something like that, remember? Like a fat nickel or like a quarter, something like that.
yeah, it doesn't say in the specimen itself doesn't have any
Yeah.
description of, other than its dimensions and that there's a mucosal surface. Okay, so this is one of them, and then the other would be the actual operative report from this procedure.
From that one.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have
And if not, we can.
anything from
Okay.
that.
And if not, we can request that, because that then helps to just put this together with what they actually did. Just allows us to play a little bit of detective work.
Right.
That
This
would
is
have been
good.
the doctor's report.
That would have been the surgeon's actual note from the procedure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which he did not.
that's okay. It's
Just
not
call
it's
him
not
up.
urgent for
Call the
this
same.
moment. We
Okay.
can get that. I'd already asked the rest of you's healthy.
Yeah.
All right, so if I can examine you next, then we can all regroup with clothes
Sure.
on and all that.
Perfect.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good.
Yeah.
We lose
All
any-
here.
All right, good. So what I'd like to do is complement, so there's nothing on exam right now that, adds to the equation in any way other than what we already know. But what I'd like to do, you had the PET CT just about a month ago, a few days shy of a month. And, the PET CT is really good for getting an overall snapshot
Right.
of any areas of concern. And given that that was just days after your groin procedure, the groin lights up
Yeah,
with
yeah,
activity. And the
yeah,
way that the
inflammation.
PET CT works, right, so the PET part of a PET CT, so the CT is like any other CAT scan, so it's an X-ray based test. It basically does a reconstruction of you with X-rays.
Yeah.
And then the PET part stands for positron emission tomography, and what that is they force you to relax probably before the test,
Right.
and they then will infuse you through the intravenous with some labeled glucose,
Right.
and that's fluorodeoxyglucose. That's the labeled glucose, the FDG PET as it's called. And then what that does is circulates, and then they image that, and then they overlay that on the CAT scan image.
Okay.
And what that test looks for is, are there areas where the cells are overactive, i.e. are they utilizing more glucose than sort of the average cells in the body. So when they force you to relax so that, if you're reading a book and then raced into the scanner, your eyes would light up, or if you were running down the hall and say, got here on time, all your leg muscles would be lighting up on the scan too, not because of cancer, but because that's exactly what it's detecting. Your muscles that are being used are going to be utilizing that glucose as a source of nutrition. And so it's not a specific test for cancer. And although cancer cells will often be more actively utilizing the sugar than other cells in the body, but so can inflammation or infection, as you mentioned, arthritis can do the same thing. And so there was some lighting up in your groin, which would be entirely expected. But what it's a little hard to do is look under the hood, because the PET part, most but not all, or let's say many PET scans, don't have the same degree of granularity or resolution that a conventional CT scan has, where there's IV and oral contrast, and it allows us to look at other organs and the vasculature and some of the blood metrics sort of the tissues in the body. And so what I'd like to do is do a bit of a mini full court press to assess things and get a good snapshot, because over time we'll be doing imaging as well as surveillance and things like that. And so what I'd like to do is complement the PET CT scan with a dedicated CT, so a standard CT scan of the abdomen and pelvis. I think it'd be okay not to do the lungs since you just had the PET scan 3.5 weeks ago, but to do the abdomen and pelvis, to get an MRI of the pelvis. So that's using basically going a big magnet.
Yeah, I've done MRIs.
You've done MRI. And so MRI in the pelvic area is often used for rectal cancer.
Okay.
And so we use an approach similar to rectal cancer, because it's good to look at the end of the anorectal tract, and also some of the soft tissue in the area, and looking at lymph nodes in the area as well. And it complements the CT. It's a different approach, no radiation, it's all magnetic. And then the other would be a third way to complement, focused in the groin area, would be an ultrasound, sonogram. And all three of these would be designed to see, one would be to get a landscape. What nodes and other tissues do we see? Did any of them look abnormal? Does it just look like healing in biopsy? Because that could direct us to some opportunities and approaches. And then the other is, do we see anything that looks abnormal? And if so, what is it? And so those we can hopefully get today, tomorrow. The PET CT is the one that usually takes the longest to get approved, because that takes anywhere from 24 to 72 hours to get approved based on insurance. The others usually take less time. So when we were talking about you, they're already working on that.
Yeah.
To get
so
those
we
scheduled.
could possibly get some of those done today, right?
Yeah. So we're gonna see what we can do.
And then up here, you get the results almost immediately, right? Or do you gotta?
Well, the computers need to generate the images, and then someone needs to read them. So it takes a little while. Yeah.
It's not like you're
no, not days. No, everything is hours to a day here.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're going to set up to have you see one of my colorectal surgery colleagues tomorrow.
Okay.
Where the plan would likely be like a proctoscopy in the office.
Okay.
And then, in addition, you're seeing Dr. Wednesday.
Seeing a radiology dude tomorrow.
And radiation oncologist tomorrow. Right. So a typical or sort of standard approach that we've taken for anorectal melanoma, which this does seem to be from the outside report and also confirmed here with review of, I think it was 4 slides that were received here from the anal excision, is a mucosal type melanoma. And those are from the pigment producing cells called melanocytes in the skin. And they are not only on the outside cutaneous exposed surfaces, but also the skin itself, but also the aerodigestive tract has melanocytes or pigment producing cells. So there could be melanoma in the upper airway as well as at the bottom end of the GI tract. And there are also melanocytes, pigment producing cells in the back of the eye. So not generally related, but there's another place where you can actually see, you can hear of melanoma in the back of the eye as well. Our general approach has been one of local excision. So historically there was an approach that often included what's called abdominal perineal resection, sort of removal of the whole bottom with a colostomy. And that for a long time now here and in most of the other major centers has not been part of the equation. Instead, it's been a multi-pronged approach, and it sounds like by the people that Dr. Diab had already started to consult to would be fitting. So
Yeah.
surgery's a component, adjuvant radiation therapy, and then as well, usually some sort of systemic therapy in that setting. Sometimes when the disease is identified and is still present, we sometimes do the systemic therapy first.
Yeah.
So we may have done that if we had seen you before the
Yeah.
excision. And so one of the reasons to get the studies that I just outlined is to say, okay, do we see anything right now that may be disease? Because one option then would be to do something up front rather than let's say surgery, or just sort of confirmation of that surgery is done as sort of a first step, and then radiation and then systemic treatment. Given that the mass in the groin, 8 centimeters, would be a large mass, and so it's very possible that there's other microscopic disease there. And we'll have these imaging modalities to complement the PET-CT you had a few weeks ago, as well as physical exam, but there is the possibility of microscopic disease there, and much of what we've done in the past has been what we call in the adjuvant setting, meaning after surgery. And
Right.
so if there was disease somewhere, it had often been resected in the form of a lymph node dissection, or in this case, a groin dissection. So that would be a possibility, although we're in a new era right now where we don't do everything the way we used to do it, particularly for cutaneous melanoma. That being said, this type of melanoma can be recalcitrant to treatment, and so sometimes the upfront approach is we want to think about all the possibilities. And so given that the melanoma was diagnosed, not only in the anal region but also in the groin region, we know that there's a risk of spread because there's already been some evidence and documentation of spread to the groin, so there could be spread beyond. So the MRI, the pelvis, the CT, the abdomen, pelvis will also look at the entire more proximate chain of lymph nodes that are part of the extension of the superficial inguinal, the groin lymph nodes, more into the pelvis as they move up more centrally. And that would then give us a really clean snapshot of that. PET-CT is good, but doesn't give us the granularity and that these kinds of images could do, because that might also then change the landscape. If there does seem to be some abnormal lymph nodes beyond what a surgical field might be, then we may say, hey, maybe we should consider treating head to toe first. Because then it will be less likely that getting the microscopic disease in the groin area, if there's no evidence of disease there, but there's something of concern outside the field that we normally be entertaining. And the surgery would likely be focused in the areas where we see disease, if it's there, and that could be in the superficial groin or the pelvis. But if we were not to see disease elsewhere, we may just focus then on consolidating the area where you had essentially a biopsy. It wasn't really a plan for treatment because no one knew what it was when you went into the operating room at that point. And so these other tests will help with that. The radiation oncologist would be a good idea because we usually do include radiation oncology. The whole goal is to preserve the sphincter. And so on the outside report, you may have seen that it was, the margin was close, but they didn't see any tumor at the margin. It was within 0.5 millimeter. In those situations, we don't usually have an automatic, you need more surgery in that area, because we already know that the disease has gone beyond this, and the radiation will be to that field, including what's called the perirectal or perianal area as well. And so the sort of final recommendation for surgery in the groin area would be pending some of these other tests that we plan to do in the next, hopefully 24 to 36 hours. And then this is one of my colleagues. He's one of the senior colorectal surgeons here, and we work together a lot in this area. So, anal melanoma is rare, but we see a fair bit of anal melanoma because rare things we tend to see a disproportionate amount of things that are not so common. And so it looks like you're healing from. So I didn't do a formal proctoscopy, but sort of externally there's an area. It looks like there was some separation. I don't know if he had done, I don't have the operative report, so I don't know if there were stitches.
No stitches.
No stitches, so just let it heal in. So it looks
Yeah.
like the bed, the base of it looks like it's granulating,
Yeah.
that's healing tissue there. And I don't see any evidence of infection right there.
That's good.
And Dr. will be able to see a little bit more proximally
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay. Cool.
Now, have you had a colonoscopy at all?
Never had one of
Okay.
those.
So it'd be reasonable to have just a screening colonoscopy.
Okay.
You could probably do that at home as well. And you could do it
Okay.
here or at home. I don't know if we could, that would be hard to do in, within a day or so here.
Along with all the other tests.
Yeah,
Well, the prep.
because that's a procedure.
Yeah, you gotta get
That
ready
would
for
be,
it, I guess.
that would be, yeah, with
Probably.
anesthesia and stuff. But just to have a baseline that there's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
It would be extremely uncommon to have
All this done and not have-
multiple primaries of an anal rectal melanoma.
Yeah.
Elsewhere in the GI tract, but it would be just helpful to have a baseline there. Sometimes if it's a GI doc who's doing the endoscopy to look at the hemorrhoid, for example, it'll be in the setting of a colonoscopy, and then they'll.
Okay.
So as opposed to just focusing on that area, so I would say that would be one of the things to. We could arrange it down here if you'd like, but otherwise, if it's easy to do at home, that would be fine too.
Okay.
So we just contact Dr.
He's
surgeon
the
that
Yeah,
did
he's
the-
my proctologist.
Yeah, so if
up
there's
there.
a GI endoscopist who, a colonoscopist, that would be
Mhm.
someone who does, a fair bit of colonoscopy,
Okay.
okay? It'd be unlikely to change, because Dr. Rodriguez would look more at the bottom, and the rest of you would likely be just to have a baseline,
Okay.
Okay.
okay?
Gotcha.
Okay.
Questions?
Yeah. So we're gonna schedule all these right now,
Right, so
Which-
CT abdomen, pelvis, MRI of the pelvis, ultrasound of the groin,
and then appointment to
and
see.
it's in colorectal, the radiation oncologist, and then followed with, yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
and then we'll put our heads together.
Okay.
So there isn't necessarily one path forward,
Okay.
which is one of the reasons you're here too, I think. And so that's why when we get this additional info, then we can decide on that.
So do you think, with getting all of this done, when we meet with Dr. on Wednesday, will he be able to recommend the overall treatment plan at that point?
Possibly, it depends if we've had a chance to talk.
Okay.
We have our planning conferences are on Mondays usually. I mean, not usually, that's when our melanoma, our weekly conference is on Mondays, but we won't have all the info for these tests. But we can certainly start the conversation. So I'll reach out to him and let him know that we're planning to get these studies probably in advance of his. And then
On Wednesday, yeah.
we've already emailed RB as we call him and to let him know what other tests, and we'll see if we can get those before you see him.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
If not, it'll be right around the time you see him,
That'd be great.
and then
Yeah.
we'll go
Okay.
from there. But we should be able to, unless there's some insurance, hold or something like that, which I
Yeah,
don't
it's not gonna
anticipate,
happen.
then we should be able to get everything today, tomorrow.
That'd be great.
And that way, yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Until we did all the rest of these tests,
Yeah,
and
kinda gotta
be
wait
more
for the
like,
rest of
do we
this.
need surgery, do we don't? Well, we can't do that.
Yeah,
without
so
all
I'd like
that.
to get
Just get all
these
these
other
tests
tests,
done.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then questions, I guess, for Wednesday after we do all this.
Yeah, and then we could even have sort of an informal type of, where we'll be able to discuss,
Yeah.
and then come up with some, sort of off cycle, so to speak.
Mhm. That would be much appreciated. Yeah.
But sometimes we need the whole team, but we can, you're seeing a bunch of us, so that would be helpful too.
Yeah.
Kind of one of each.
Who do I go see for the schedule all these things right
We'll,
now?
we'll
You got me all lined up.
we'll square you away.
Okay.
Be the
That'd
contractor
be it,
here.
man.
Yeah.
All right.
Give you point you in the right direction.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Sounds like a good plan.